August 29, 2011. At 6:12 a.m., a fisherman spotted the body of a woman floating near the public dock in Brayhaven, Maine, a quiet coastal town known for lobster boats and generational silence. She wore a silk nightgown, no shoes, no ID. Her arms were crossed over her chest, as if someone had posed her. Martin Blackwell had been fishing these waters for 40 years. The fog that morning was thick enough to swallow his boat whole if he ventured too far from shore, so he'd stayed close, working the shallows. When he first saw the pale shape drifting between the pilings, he thought it was trash, maybe a discarded mannequin or a bundle of pale fabric. It wasn't until he maneuvered closer that the horror registered. "Jesus Christ," he whispered, the words disappearing into the mist. The woman's nightgown billowed around her like a jellyfish, silk dancing with the gentle current. Her dark hair floated in a halo around a face that looked almost peaceful. Almost. When the sheriff arrived, the dock had already begun to fill with onlookers, fishermen preparing for the day's work, a few early-rising tourists, locals who had heard the commotion over their morning coffee. Sheriff Davies had been in law enforcement for 22 years, 15 of them in Brayhaven, and he'd never seen a body quite like this. "Doesn't make sense," he muttered to his deputy, Kent. "Who crosses a woman's arms like that? Who puts her in water but makes sure she's presentable?" The town didn't recognize her. "Never seen her before," said Maggie from the diner, peering over the edge of the yellow police tape. "And I know every face in Brayhaven." "Could be a tourist," offered Kent, though his voice lacked conviction. Summer tourists in Brayhaven were a well-known quantity, families in minivans, couples in sports cars, the occasional bus tour of retirees. Not lone women in silk nightgowns. "Run her, Prince," Sheriff Davies ordered. "And get me the Coast Guard. I want to know if any boats went missing last night." But no boats had gone missing. No hotels reported a guest unaccounted for. No cars had been abandoned. It was as if the woman had materialized from the fog itself. 3 days later, fingerprint analysis revealed she was Marlene Forster, 45, from Albany, New York, over 300 miles away. A single mother of 2, real estate broker, and by all accounts, someone who had never set foot in Brayhaven before. "I don't understand," Sheriff Davies said, staring at the facts from Albany PD showing Marlene smiling in her real estate headshot. Her hair was styled in a professional bob, so different from the long strands that had drifted around her in the harbor. "What brings a real estate agent from Albany to die in my town?" Her family hadn't reported her missing because they believed she was on a weekend retreat. She'd left a voicemail for her sister Karen, saying she was taking a break and would return by Monday. "Play it again," Sheriff Davies asked Karen, who had driven up from Albany the moment she'd been notified. Karen's hands trembled as she held up her phone. Marlene's voice filled the small interview room. "Hey, it's me. Just letting you know I'm taking that break we talked about. Going to turn off my phone for a few days, get my head straight. Don't worry about the kids, they're with Richard this weekend. I'll be back Monday. Love you." "Did she mention where she was going?" Davies asked. Karen shook her head, wiping at her eyes. "I assumed it was that meditation center she sometimes visits upstate. She'd been struggling lately." "Struggling how?" The divorce hit her hard. "Richard, her ex, he's remarrying in October." "Younger woman, of course," Karen's voice turned bitter. Marlene was putting on a brave face for the kids, but I could tell it was eating at her. She mentioned wanting to try something new, something to help her move on. But the autopsy showed Marlene died less than 12 hours before discovery, sometime around 11 p.m. the night before. "Manual strangulation," the medical examiner told Davies, pointing to the faint bruising around Marlene's neck. "Whoever did this knew what they were doing. Quick, efficient. She probably lost consciousness within seconds. And the water? She was dead before she went in. No water in the lungs. This wasn't a drowning, the harbor was just a dumping ground. Toxicology came back clean. No drugs, no alcohol. Nothing to suggest she hadn't been in full possession of her faculties when she died. There were small bruises on her inner arms and wrists. No defensive wounds. No fingerprints on her body, and her hair had been freshly brushed. "The brushing bothers me," Davies told Kent as they drove back from the morgue. "Who kills a woman, then takes the time to brush her hair? It's ceremonial." "Maybe it's personal," Kent suggested. "Like they cared about her, even as they killed her." "Or it's about presentation," Davies countered. "They wanted her found a certain way." Police traced her phone, which had been wiped and left on a bench outside a Brayhaven diner. Surveillance footage from the diner's security camera showed her walking past the marina shortly after 10:30 p.m. Alone. Calm. Davies watched the grainy footage repeatedly. Marlene Forster walked with purpose, wearing jeans and a light jacket, not the nightgown she'd been found in. She glanced over her shoulder once, but didn't appear frightened. Just cautious. "Where were you going, Marlene?" he murmured. The investigation stalled for a week. Marlene's funeral was held in Albany, attended by her children, her sister, and a scattering of friends and colleagues. No one from Brayhaven made the trip. Then came the anonymous tip. A letter arrived at the local sheriff's office, postmarked from Portland. Inside was a single sentence: "Ask about the Tuesday group at Seafarer Lodge." The Seafarer? Kent frowned. "That's that fancy retreat place on the cliffs, right? Rich folks getaway." The Seafarer Lodge was a private retreat center just outside town. Mostly rented for workshops, spiritual seminars, and off-the-grid meetups. A converted mansion from the 1920s, it offered privacy, ocean views, and a strict no-publicity policy that appealed to clients looking to escape. "Let's pay them a visit," Davies said. The manager of the Seafarer, a thin man named Elliot Parker, looked uncomfortable when Davies showed him Marlene's photograph. Yes, she was here. Part of a group that rented the entire East Wing last weekend. "What kind of group?" Davies pressed. "The paperwork says, New Boundaries. Listed as a women's wellness collective. Do you have contact information?" Parker handed over a slim file. "This is all we have. They paid in cash, which isn't unusual for us. Many of our clients prefer discretion." Records showed the lodge had been rented that weekend by New Boundaries. No public website. No digital footprint. The only contact was a name, Cynthia Vale, and a phone number with a Boston area code. "How many women?" Davies asked. 8, including Ms. Forster. They arrived Friday afternoon, were scheduled through Sunday morning. When questioned further, the property manager said all participants were middle-aged women, quiet, respectful, cash-paying. But one staff member, a young woman who cleaned the rooms, remembered something odd. "The woman in the photo? She arrived alone, after the others," the cleaner, Mia, told Davies. "I saw her in the hallway, looking lost. She asked me where the Tuesday group was meeting, which confused me since it was Friday. When I pointed her toward the East Wing, she thanked me but seemed nervous. Not scared, just tense." On the second day, there was a heated argument in the main hall. Mia had been changing linens in a nearby room when she heard raised voices. "I couldn't make out what they were saying exactly," she explained. "But one woman, not the one who died, was yelling about breaking protocol and compromising everyone. Then someone else said something about, she already knows too much. I thought it was just, group drama. These wellness retreats can get intense." By the final night, Marlene had packed her bags early. "I saw her with her suitcase around 9 p.m., Elliot Parker told Davies. "She asked me to call her a taxi to town, but then changed her mind. Said she needed some air first and would walk into town. I offered to have someone escort her, it's a dark road, but she insisted she was fine." "Did she seem afraid?" Davies asked. Parker hesitated. Not afraid, no. Determined. Like someone who'd made up their mind about something important. The organizer of the retreat was the woman using the name Cynthia Vale, but that identity turned out to be fake. The phone number she provided was disconnected. No forwarding address. No real name ever surfaced. Davies requested the security footage from the lodge. We don't have cameras inside, for privacy reasons, Parker explained. And our exterior cameras, well, there was a system failure that weekend. Happened sometimes with the old setup we had then. Convenient, Davies remarked. If you're implying. I'm not implying anything, Mr. Parker. But a woman who stayed at your lodge ended up dead, and now no one can seem to remember anything useful about the people she was with. Davies obtained a warrant to search the rooms where the Tuesday group had stayed. They found nothing except a single earring under one of the beds, a small silver hoop that Karen later confirmed belonged to her sister. She always wore these, Karen said, turning the earring over in her trembling fingers. But only one is missing from her jewelry box at home. The other should still be there. She was wearing it at the retreat, Davies concluded. And lost it somehow. Or someone took it, Kent suggested. Back at the station, Davies spread out everything they knew on the evidence board. Marlene Forster, 45, divorced, real estate agent. No known connection to Brayhaven. A mysterious wellness retreat with no digital footprint. A leader with a fake identity. A heated argument. A nighttime walk into town. And a body in the harbor, carefully arranged, wearing clothes she hadn't been seen in. We're missing something, he told Kent. Why Tuesday group when they met on a weekend? Why was she in a nightgown she didn't pack? Who brushed her hair after killing her? They interviewed the taxi drivers in town. One remembered picking up a woman matching Marlene's description from the diner around 8 a.m. on Saturday, not from the lodge, but from town. She asked me to take her to Portland, the driver said. Seemed in a hurry. Kept looking out the back window. Did she say why she was going to Portland? No, but she made a call during the ride. I try not to eavesdrop, but she wasn't exactly whispering. She told someone she'd found something in the book and needed to verify before moving forward. Said it could change everything. What book? Davies pressed. No idea. But when I dropped her at the bus station in Portland, she was carrying this fancy leather-bound thing. Dark blue or black, I think. No such book was found with Marlene's possessions. Her suitcase, recovered from her room at the lodge, contained normal weekend clothes, toiletries, and a dog-eared self-help book called New Beginnings After Loss. So she goes to Portland Saturday morning, then comes back to Brayhaven that night, Davies said, tracing the timeline on the whiteboard. Why come back? What was so important? Police believe Marlene may have discovered something at the retreat, something worth silencing. Over the next week, Davies and Kent traced every lead they could find. They discovered that Marlene had visited the Brayhaven Historical Society during her trip to Portland. The volunteer there remembered her asking about local families, specifically anyone connected to the property where the Seafarer Lodge now stood. She was especially interested in the original owners, the elderly volunteer recounted. The Hastings family. They were shipping magnates, very wealthy, very private. The last of them died in the 1970s, no heirs. Did she say why she was interested? Not directly. But she kept asking if they had any connection to a Tuesday Society or Tuesday Club. We have no record of any such organization. Davies drove back to the Seafarer Lodge, this time with a different approach. Instead of questioning the management, he walked the grounds, trying to see what Marlene might have seen. The lodge sat on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic, surrounded by carefully maintained gardens and a small private beach accessible only by a steep set of wooden stairs built into the cliff face. At the bottom of those stairs, partially hidden by rocks, Davies found something unexpected, a small stone marker, weathered by decades of salt air. Most of the engraving had eroded, but he could just make out TS and what might have been the date, 1932. Back in town, he dug through old newspapers at the local library. In 1932, the Hastings family had been at the center of a scandal, whispers of secret meetings, occult practices, even human sacrifice. Nothing was ever proven, but 3 young women from neighboring towns had gone missing that year. Their bodies were never found. The newspaper called the rumors hysterical fancy and small-town superstition, but dedicated several columns to describing the alleged Tuesday Society that met at the Hastings mansion. Local fisherman Elijah Blackwell claims to have seen rituals on the beach below the house, always on Tuesday nights, with women in white gowns. Davies read aloud from the fragile newspaper. Blackwell was dismissed as a drunk and a liar. Blackwell? Kent said. Like Martin Blackwell? The guy who found Marlene's body? His grandfather, maybe. The fishing families here go back generations. Davies visited Martin Blackwell at his small house near the harbor. The old fisherman sat on his porch, mending nets with gnarled hands. My grandfather wasn't a liar, Blackwell said firmly when Davies asked about the old stories. What he saw was real enough. The Tuesday Society was real too, though not what people thought. What was it then? A women's group, yes, but not witches or whatever nonsense the papers printed. They were wives and daughters of powerful men, meeting in secret to discuss things women weren't supposed to know about then: politics, business, their husbands' dealings. Some were trying to gain power themselves, others were just trying to survive their marriages. How do you know this? Blackwell's weathered face creased in a sad smile. My grandmother was their cook. She wasn't allowed in their meetings, but she heard things. Saw things. Including what happened to those missing girls. Which was what? They weren't sacrificed. They were helped to escape. New identities, new lives away from abusive situations. The Tuesday Society had resources, connections. They could make people disappear, in a good way, most times. Most times. Blackwell's expression darkened. There was one death. Not a girl they were helping, but one of their own. A Mrs. Patterson. Found floating in the harbor in 1934, just like your woman. Arms crossed the same way. They called it suicide, but my grandmother knew better. Why was she killed? She wanted to take the society public, turn it into a proper women's rights organization. The others thought it too dangerous, they'd lose everything if their husbands learned what they were doing. So they silenced her. Then they disbanded, at least officially. You think the society continued somehow? For 80 years. Blackwell shrugged. Old ways don't die easy in places like this. Secrets get passed down, mother to daughter, friend to friend. The case stalled again. The phone number for Cynthia Vale was traced to a burner phone, purchased with cash at a convenience store in Boston. The retreat participants left no paper trail, no credit card charges in town, no names in hotel registers. Then, 3 months after Marlene's death, Karen called Sheriff Davies. I was going through Marlene's computer, she said, her voice tight with emotion. There was an encrypted folder I couldn't access before, but her son remembered she used to use his birthday as a password. There's something you should see. The folder contained dozens of articles about women who had died under mysterious circumstances over the past decade. All found in water, lakes, rivers, harbors. All with their arms crossed over their chests. All initially ruled as suicides or accidents, cases closed quickly. And one document, labeled simply Tuesday, contained a list of names, women from across the country, all successful in male-dominated fields, all in their 40s or 50s. Next to each name was a date. Marlene's name was there too, with the date of the weekend retreat. At the bottom of the document was a single line, new boundaries equals new order. She was investigating them, Davies realized. That's why she went to the retreat. She wasn't there for wellness, she was there to expose something. But what? Karen asked. What is this Tuesday group? I think, Davy said slowly, it's a very old society that's learned to adapt with the times. No longer wives meeting in secret, but powerful women in their own right. Still operating in shadows, still with the power to make people disappear, one way or another. A final search of the Seafarer Lodge turned up nothing new. The retreat center closed the following year, the property sold to a developer who planned to turn it into luxury condominiums. The stone marker on the beach disappeared during construction. Marlene's case remains unsolved. Each year, someone leaves a single silk ribbon tied to the dock railing where she was found. No one's ever seen who does it. But now, Sheriff Davies, retired after 20 years of service, makes a point of walking by the dock on the anniversary of Marlene's death. He watches from a distance as a tall woman in elegant clothes approaches the railing just before dawn, ties a ribbon with practiced movements, then disappears into the fog that always seems to gather on that day. He's never followed her. Some mysteries, he's decided, are better left unsolved. But he wonders sometimes about the Tuesday group, about whether they are villains or vigilantes or something in between. He wonders what Marlene found in that book that made her return to Brayhaven. He wonders if the women on her list are perpetrators or potential victims. And late at night, when the fog rolls in from the Atlantic and wraps the town in secrecy, he wonders if the Tuesday Society is watching him too, deciding whether he knows too much. Locals just say, it's for the woman who didn't belong, but found something she shouldn't have. And in Albany, Karen keeps her sister's earring in a small box by her bed. Sometimes, when she can't sleep, she takes it out and remembers Marlene's last voicemail, going to take that break we talked about, get my head straight. Except they had never talked about any break. That detail has haunted Karen for years, the casual reference to a conversation that never happened. A code, perhaps. Or a warning that came too late. The Tuesday Society, if it exists, has never made another appearance in Brayhaven. But sometimes, women of a certain age exchange knowing glances when they pass the old dock. And on Tuesday nights, when the fog is thickest, some swear they can see figures on the beach below where the Seafarer Lodge once stood, women in white, arms linked, facing the water. Sheriff Davies doesn't believe in ghosts. But he believes in secrets, in the power they hold over the living. And sometimes, passing the dock where Martin Blackwell found Marlene Forster's body, he thinks he can hear whispers carried on the salt air, women's voices, discussing things men aren't supposed to know. The silk ribbons remain for exactly 1 day before disappearing. No one removes them. They simply vanish, like the women who leave them, like the secrets they represent, like Marlene Forster on her last night alive, walking calmly into a fog from which she would never emerge.